16 days had passed since 16-year-old Brittany Gregory vanished without a trace. On the morning of July 27, 2004, search teams moved slowly through a wooded corridor off Ridge Avenue in Lakewood, New Jersey. Bloodhounds pulled their handlers deeper into the brush beneath the tall power lines that stretched across the clearing. Then the dog stopped. There, hidden in a shallow grave barely 2 feet deep, investigators found Brittany Gregory. The discovery ended more than 2 weeks of desperate searching across Ocean County. But it also revealed a devastating truth. Brittany had not been abducted by a stranger lurking in the dark. She had willingly gotten into a car with someone she believed she could trust. And that decision, made in a moment of impatience by a teenage girl who simply wanted to see her boyfriend, had cost her everything. Brittany Gregory was born into a family that, like many others, had its complications. Her parents, Deborah Gregory and Joseph Dunn, did not live together. Her mother, Deborah, lived in Beechwood, a quiet borough in Ocean County, New Jersey. Her father, Joseph Dunn, lived on Greenwood Loop Road in Brick Township, a modest community along the Jersey Shore about 60 miles south of New York City. Growing up, Brittany moved between the two homes, but as she entered her teenage years, she began living primarily with her father in Brick Township. She had several siblings. Her older sister, Bobby Jo Dunn, was 19 years old when Brittany died. She also had a sister named Brianna Gregory, a brother named Brian Gregory, and another brother, William Gregory, who was known by the nickname Boomer. Brittany was the youngest among them. Despite being the youngest, she carried that position with a quiet maturity rather than expectation. She attended elementary and middle school in Toms River before transferring to Brick Township Memorial High School when she began 9th grade. The move turned out to suit her well. Teachers remembered her not because she caused problems, but because she genuinely cared about learning. Brittany consistently earned straight A's and had a particular love for science. She had already begun talking about becoming a forensic scientist one day, a goal that would later carry a painful irony. Classmates at Brick Memorial High School remembered her as more than just a good student. A 16-year-old classmate named John Barrett later summed up Brittany's personality in the simplest way possible. She made everything nicer. It was not an elaborate tribute, but it was an honest one. Brittany had a warmth that naturally improved the atmosphere around her. Parents noticed it too. Darlene Andomasaris, whose son attended school with Brittany, described her as someone who always thought of others first. She wasn't your typical teenager, Andomasaris said. She always put other people ahead of herself. She was very kind and wonderful. For Brittany's mother, Deborah Gregory, her daughter was the center of her world. "She's the 16-year-old kid everybody wants," Deborah said. "She was my prize. It was like she was plucked right out of heaven." Brittany had blue eyes and long blonde hair, and in most photographs she wore the same natural smile, one that seemed effortless, as though happiness was simply her default expression. By July 2004, she had just finished her sophomore year of high school. She was doing well in school, enjoying summer break, and like many teenagers, she was excited about spending time with her boyfriend. It was a Sunday evening in the middle of summer. There was nothing about the day that suggested anything unusual was about to happen. At around 8:30 p.m. on Sunday, July 11, 2004, Brittany picked up the phone. She was calling from her father's house on Greenwood Loop Road in Brick Township. Her father was not home that evening, and his girlfriend had not yet returned either, leaving Brittany alone in the house. She called her mother because she wanted a ride to her boyfriend's house. Deborah Gregory explained that she could not come immediately, but she offered a solution. Brittany's sister could give her a ride if she was willing to wait about 45 minutes. It was not a long wait. Brittany said she understood, but Brittany was 16 years old, and 45 minutes felt like a long time when all she wanted was to be somewhere else. Around that same time, a man named Jack Fuller Jr. pulled up to the house. Fuller was 38 years old. He lived on Western Drive in the Ramtown section of Howell Township, about a mile and a half away. He and Joseph Dunn had known each other for years. Fuller's daughter, Cassandra, was close friends with Brittany's sister, Bobby Jo. Within the small social network of families, neighbors, and acquaintances in that part of Ocean County, Fuller was a familiar face. He was not a stranger. When he arrived at the house looking for Joseph Dunn, Brittany told him her father was not home. During their conversation, the topic turned to Brittany needing a ride. Fuller offered to take her. She accepted. It would be the last decision Brittany Gregory ever made. Later that night, when Joseph Dunn's girlfriend returned home, Brittany was gone. Calls to the house went unanswered. By the next morning, the family realized something was terribly wrong. Brittany Gregory was reported missing. What followed was one of the largest missing person searches in the recent history of Ocean County. Police from Brick Township worked alongside officers from across Ocean and Monmouth counties. Helicopters searched the heavily wooded and swampy terrain from above. Bloodhounds tracked possible scent trails. Volunteers joined the search teams. At the height of the effort, hundreds of law enforcement officers were involved, many donating their own time beyond their regular shifts. Brick Township had long been known for its safety. At one point, it had even been cited as the second safest city in the country. The disappearance of a 16-year-old girl shook the community deeply. Residents posted flyers with Brittany's photograph everywhere. Her description was submitted to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and her face appeared repeatedly on television news broadcasts across the metropolitan area. Then, exactly 1 week after Brittany had last been seen, investigators made a dramatic move. On July 18, 2004, authorities arrested Jack Fuller Jr. and charged him with murder. The arrest came before Brittany's body had even been found. Fuller was taken to the Ocean County Jail and held on $1 million in bail. He denied involvement, but investigators already had powerful evidence. A police informant had secretly recorded Fuller during a conversation in which he asked whether burying someone 4 feet underground would prevent animals from digging up the body. On the same recording, Fuller mentioned a man named Thomas Long, a 39-year-old longtime friend from Howell Township, had been with Fuller on the night Brittany disappeared. According to the recording, Fuller suggested Long might need to be silenced because he had last seen Brittany alive inside Fuller's car. When questioned by investigators, Thomas Long confirmed that on the evening of July 11th, Fuller had given him a ride home to Howell Township. Brittany had been in the car. Long said that after he got out, Brittany moved from the back seat to the front passenger seat. He also noted that during the short time he observed them together, Brittany barely spoke to him and seemed focused only on Fuller. Long told investigators he was fully cooperating. On July 19th, Fuller appeared in court before James Sitta wearing a red jail jumpsuit. The courtroom was packed with Brittany's family and friends. Deborah Gregory was there too. In the days leading up to the hearing, she had driven through streets in Brick and Howell, searching for any sign of her daughter. Before Fuller's arrest that morning, something disturbing had happened. He had approached Deborah and hugged her. Later, she described the moment with visible revulsion. "He gave me a hug and I just felt cold," she told reporters. "Like, you don't mean this." Then she added something that revealed the depth of her anger. "If I had known then, he wouldn't have made it to the courthouse." Standing on the courthouse steps, Deborah spoke directly to reporters. "She was just a good kid," she said. "I want her back. I want her back. Just give her to me." Inside the courtroom, she chose a seat at the end of the third row. She wanted to see him. "I want to look right in that man's face," she said. "I want him to see me." 2 weeks after Brittany disappeared, on July 25th, hundreds of people gathered at Windward Beach Park in Brick Township for a twilight prayer vigil. Estimates placed the crowd at nearly 2,000 people. Many of Brittany's classmates wore shirts printed with her photograph. Her sister Brianna stood before the crowd and read a poem written from Brittany's imagined perspective, describing her passage into death. As she read, sobs spread through the crowd. The mayor of Brick Township, Joseph Scarpelli, described the situation as the worst tragedy the town had ever experienced. 2 days later, the bloodhounds made their discovery. Brittany's body was found beneath power lines off Ridge Avenue in Lakewood, roughly a mile and a half from Fuller's home, and not far from where she had lived with her father. She had been buried without clothing. An autopsy performed by Bad Hideout Park revealed blunt force trauma to her head. But after 16 days of summer heat, decomposition had progressed so far that a precise cause of death could not be determined. Dr. Park said asphyxiation or suffocation could not be ruled out. The head injuries alone were not conclusively fatal. What investigators did know was that whatever had killed Brittany had happened inside Jack Fuller's car. Blood found in the vehicle was later confirmed through forensic testing to belong to Brittany Gregory. Her private funeral took place on August 2, 2004, in Brick Township. Near her school, an impromptu memorial appeared. People who had never met Brittany left messages online after seeing her photograph on the news, many saying they could not stop thinking about her smile. Inside the funeral home, photographs showed Brittany during ordinary moments of her life, moments that now felt unbearably precious. Understanding the crime also meant understanding who Jack Fuller Jr. was. He had an extensive criminal record. In May and August of 2000, he had been sentenced to 5 years in prison in 2 separate theft cases in Ocean and Monmouth counties. The sentences ran concurrently, and he was released in 2002. During the 2 years before Brittany's murder, he returned to jail for 3 months on a probation violation, pleaded guilty to assault, and was indicted on a drug charge. He had most recently been released from prison in April 2003. Just 15 months later, he offered Brittany Gregory a ride. Neighbors described him as temperamental and addicted to crack cocaine. He lived with his father. Through his daughter Cassandra's friendship with Bobby Joe Dunn, he had become loosely connected to Brittany's family. Not close, but familiar. After his arrest, Fuller maintained his innocence for more than a year. His defense attorney, John Goines, filed motions to suppress evidence, change the trial venue, and dismiss the indictment due to the uncertain cause of death. Ocean County Executive Assistant Prosecutor Ronald F. DeLigny opposed those motions, arguing that the body's decomposition, caused by Fuller burying it, was exactly why determining the cause of death had become so difficult. By July 2005, 1 year after Brittany's disappearance, the family was still waiting for trial. Joseph Dunn said he missed his daughter every single day. Her brother William spoke openly about his regret. "I miss this kid every day," he said. He admitted he had not spent enough time with his family. "I was never there when I was supposed to be. I feel like I failed as a brother." Then, on October 18, 2005, just 1 week before the trial was scheduled to begin in Toms River, Jack Fuller Jr. entered a courtroom before Vincent J. Grasso Wonder. He pleaded guilty to murder. What followed was a confession that stunned everyone present. Answering questions from his own attorney, Fuller calmly described the events of July 11, 2004. After dropping Thomas Long off at his home, Brittany moved from the back seat to the front seat of the car. Soon afterward, Fuller stopped the vehicle and took out a crack pipe. Brittany immediately objected. She raised her hand toward the pipe and told him to stop, saying she did not want him smoking crack cocaine in front of her. Fuller responded with violence. He punched her in the head at least twice. When asked if he had done so with the intention of incapacitating her, Fuller replied simply, "I did." Brittany began bleeding heavily from her nose and mouth. She lost consciousness. Soon she began making gurgling sounds, the sound produced when blood or fluid enters the airway of someone who cannot breathe properly. Her head slumped to one side, and while she struggled for breath, Jack Fuller continued smoking his cocaine. He did not call for help. He did not try to revive her. Only after finishing did he check on the girl beside him. By then, she was no longer breathing. The courtroom reacted with shock. Joseph Dunn stormed out when Fuller admitted hearing the gurgling sounds and doing nothing. Outside the courtroom, one of Brittany's sisters collapsed and required medical treatment. Others sat silently, absorbing the horrifying details. Fuller provided no explanation for why Brittany had been buried without clothing. He said nothing about what happened between her death and the grave. Some of those unanswered questions were partially addressed by the recorded audio conversation, but many remained unresolved. Before the plea deal was finalized, prosecutor Ronald DeLigny discussed it with Brittany's family. They agreed to accept it. Exhausted by grief and years of legal proceedings, they wanted the case to end. On January 13, 2006, Jack Fuller Jr., now 40 years old, returned to court in Toms River for sentencing. He wore red prison scrubs, his head shaved, his wrists shackled. He sat silently as Brittany's family filled the courtroom. Judge Vincent Grasso imposed the agreed-upon sentence, 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Ocean County Prosecutor Robertser addressed the court. "It was a horrible, senseless killing," he said. "It was an intensely tragic event, particularly because she was 16, a good student, and had a good life ahead of her." The case had gripped not only Ocean County, but the entire metropolitan area, especially during the 16 days when people searched desperately for Brittany. At the time, Fuller could have faced the death penalty under New Jersey law. The plea agreement removed that possibility. Instead, he would remain in prison until at least his 70s, if he lived that long. For Brittany's mother, Deborah Gregory, the sentence changed nothing. No punishment could restore the daughter she had called her prize. The murder of Brittany Gregory showed something deeply unsettling. The greatest danger is not always a stranger hiding in the shadows. Sometimes it is someone who already knows your father's name, someone who shows up at the door looking for another person and stays just long enough to offer a favor. Brittany Gregory had done nothing wrong. She was a 16-year-old girl who simply wanted to see her boyfriend and did not want to wait 45 minutes. She trusted someone her family knew. She got into his car, and when he behaved in a way that was beneath basic human decency, she spoke up. That simple act of standing up for herself cost her life. Her brother William later said losing Brittany taught him never to take time for granted. Her classmates said she made everything nicer. Her mother said she was a prize plucked from heaven. Brittany Gregory had dreamed of becoming a forensic scientist. She was 16 years old, with straight A's, blue eyes, and a future that had only just begun. Jack Fuller Jr. took all of it and gave nothing back.